Good evening, everyone. Now that we're all here, we'll start the meeting. I'll ask Commissioner Newman to please lead us all in the Pledge of Allegiance.
With pleasure. And begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you, Brenda. Can we have roll call, please?
Chair Baldino,
Here.
Vice Chair Newman,
She is present.
Commissioner Heschler,
I'm here.
Commissioner Wingate,
Here.
and Commissioner Keldorf is absent.
Okay, now it's time for public communications. Anything not on the agenda can be addressed at this moment. I'll open public communications. All right. Seeing no one step up, I'll close public communications. On to the consent item. I will pull item E3 regarding the expansion of Brewport Tap House. Does anyone want to pull either of the meeting minutes?
Nope.
Okay, then I'll take a motion to approve the consent calendar, which will be the two meeting minutes.
I will move to approve.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that brings us to call items from the consent calendar. We're going to talk about a request for alcohol sales at the expansion of the Brewport Tap House at 200 Main Street. Is there a quick staff report on this?
Good evening, Commissioners. What we have for you today is a Type 41 license for on-site consumption of beer and wine at 200 Main Street, also known as Brewport Tap House. It will be expanding with the addition of 2,922 square feet. It will be moving into the next door building, so it will be a combined of around 5,500 square feet. On the screen here we have the site plan, which shows both sites. Sorry. And we have the floor plan with the area of expansion highlighted in red. The patio area in the back is being excluded from the calculations and will be removed to comply with parking requirements for the site. The downtown specific plan does not require additional parking for the same use, so restaurant to restaurant or office to restaurant. So everything complies there. We have conditions that protect the city and the surrounding uses from negative impacts. And staff believes that the project is appropriate for the site and will not operate in a manner that will create negative impacts. And the applicant, Mr. Krieger, is here for any questions.
All right, thank you. Any questions for staff? Nope. Okay, we'll open public communication. First right goes the applicant. Christian, do you have anything to add? Oh, come on. I'm going to ask you a question, so you got to step up.
Want me to add or just to kind of explain what the...
Just explain it. This is your chance to address our wide viewing audience.
Obviously, the goal of expansion, because we've obviously been fairly popular, but we've been extremely popular with parties.
I'm going to need you to go to the microphone because the folks at home can't hear you.
Point over there.
You can still point.
So, I don't know, I've never...
Just don't look right into it.
All right, so this is the current place, but as you may or may not know, this is almost the entire dining area. So when we get groups and businesses and stuff that want to do parties, all we have is tables and the patio that's now another contention. So this is kind of a raised area that we can do parties here, we can do parties in this room, we can do parties in this room. This, we're keeping the current wall that this is now the realtor's office, so here's another area that we can kind of have parties. So it's really not only to expand it, but have different areas. So this is going to be kind of the dining hall on this side, and that'll be the tap room area. So this will be kind of the mingling thing, and this is where groups and people can come in and just dine. And then we're also adding a bar area here that's more traditional for the people that don't want to do the self-serve part.
The lazy people, right?
Yes. For the Coors Light people. Oops, sorry.
Hey now.
See, that's what happens when you give me this. All right.
And you're connecting the two buildings from inside your original restaurant. You can walk right.
Well, this is, basically entire building, and this is where it opens up. So this is going to be a free flow area.
Okay.
And then right there is a doorway, and this is going to be the new entryway. So people come in, check in, they go into the dining, or they can go straight into the tap room, and then they can come through here.
That existing entrance that you have now will no longer be there?
We'll just connect that.
Okay. And have
Oh,
your
so
little
that will not-
outside dining?
Yeah, so
Seating.
that's the current one, but we'll just have another bar there so that it's not really an entrance.
Right.
This will be the entrance.
Very nice.
When do you expect to begin?
Tomorrow?
Well, we'll see how it
Do you-
goes.
Do you have to expand your kitchen to, do you have to
No,
have a
well,
larger?
Well, we are giving them more space. This currently is where all the dishwashing stuff is, and we're moving it over here, and that's a doorway. And then we're gonna give them their own walk-in so that staff don't have to go all the way through to do dishwashing. So, yeah, so that's how we're giving them more room, by taking out this whole area that's dishwashing and moving it to here.
And you're obviously going to have to increase your staff by
Yes,
by a substantial amount.
yes.
Will your menu change? Will your hours change? Is everything remaining the
Hours will
same?
not change. We will have probably a more limited snacking menu for here, and then a little bit, more, dining and group menu for over here. So kind of two separate menus.
Two separate menus?
Yeah, not that you can't get whatever from one side to the other, you can do it, but the idea is that the current side is kind of more shareable items,
Like you have now?
tapas and stuff like that, and this side will be more meal oriented. We're toying with barbecue and things like that, but
More dining
yeah,
options?
So this, yeah,
Okay.
this is basically the dining hall,
Uh-huh.
and that's the tap room,
Uh-huh.
and this is kind of a lounge thing, and then that's the entryway, and we're gonna have a little kind of retail T-shirt, whatever area right in this corner, and we're gaining 2 more bathrooms here. And this area is behind the scenes for
Have
our
you
staff.
have you experienced parking issues and the back of your property that gets used a lot for your clientele?
Well, I mean, the entire parking lot will now be ours as opposed to half of it.
Right.
It currently hasn't been much of a problem just because of our hours. We haven't really been open during lunch, Monday through Thursday, and that's when those people usually work. And with Old Smoky gone, there's nobody there. So the entire parking lot now will just be for us.
And then the existing use of the building they'll move out shortly or end of month or tomorrow.
Old Smokies are currently gone.
The real
and-
estate office.
And we're on a month-to-month subletting with them because we're doing 90% of our work back here first.
I got you.
So we're letting them, we're
Hang
working
out
together,
there, yeah.
letting them stay
Sure.
until it's time to do that. And so we're going to do that last.
Is that like 3 months out, 6 months out? What does that look like for your construction?
You know what? We're submitting the plans on Tuesday or Wednesday, so it's not going to take us long to actually do it. It's going to take us long to be able to do it.
The process.
So right now, they are good for April and May, for sure, and June's a possibility for them to stay. So we want them to stay as long as they want, and as long as it, because it's just dead space for us for now. We have most of our workers back there. So the current look of that, because Old Smoky was nice enough to give it a nice rustic look,
Yeah.
that we're basically just rolling with it. So
Yeah.
so that's why it's last. And we're kind of keeping they have the same kind of rustic walls right here, and so that'll stay the same, and that's the entryway to the 2 restrooms. And this area will be for like kind of live entertainment, nothing dramatic, but that's part of the thing, is entertainment license. Just something that we could do for Oktoberfest and St. Patty's Day and, all the things that kind of go along with that sort of stuff. And this is just a 2-foot step up here, so about 14 inches. And there is the handicap ramp.
Did you say you're getting rid of that back patio for parking? No.
Well, the problem is the way that the current rules are, that it's so onerous on the landlord, it becomes a covenant and permanent and goes on to the heirs and all that sort of stuff. So we've been discussing this for 2 years. It's like, we'll pay for it, just figure out a way for to pay for it. But the landlord is going like, well, I don't want this attached to my property deed and lease and mortgage forever, when it's really just a fee. It's not really getting a parking spot anywhere. So we're not fighting paying it, but the way it's written now, we can't just pay it. And he doesn't want to have basically a legal covenant on his entire property for something that could come and go, in a day, really. So what we're trying to do after this is then we're going to set up meetings and try to get options. We can do it that way, or the tenant could just pay the fee as long as they're doing it, as long as it's needed.
All right,
So-
just to be clear, you're talking about the parking in lieu fee.
Right.
You're saying you'd like to have that outdoor patio to kind of, like
Well,
you
we
have it.
had that, and we were approved for the in lieu of fee,
Right.
but the problem was we could never get to the point of figuring out how we as tenants that put the patio there, that need the patio, that want the patio, can just pay the fee and not put it on the landlord to have it actually attached to his property, because it just seems like a fee, because you're not really buying another parking spot. So it seems like kind of everybody agrees, but because it's written that way, that the only way to unwrite it is to have a sponsor, i.e. us, and $6,000 to pay to have that rule altered, amended, whatever.
Okay.
So,
But when that all gets worked out, you're not going to have to come back here. You're just here for the alcohol license, then you can work out.
right here,
the-
we decided, it's not worth holding up the whole shebang for that.
Right.
So what we're going to do is we're just taking all the tables and chairs,
Oh, I see.
and then we'll get going, and then we'll do what it needs in meetings and things like that to see, how we can get around this, to how we as tenants can pay the in lieu fee instead of putting it on the landlord, who,
Right.
as much as I'd like to think and hope that we're here for years to come, we might not be there 20 years from now. So, in which case, he might just take that out and it goes back to a loading dock or whatever it was. Well, that's what it was. It was a loading dock.
Right.
So, we still want it, but right now, for expedience sake, we want to keep moving, and then we'll sit down with whoever and see. We've had several meetings on this already.
Uh-huh.
So there seems to be a basic consensus that, maybe there's a better way of doing it. But actually, in order to do it, they wanted us to pay $6,000. So it's kind of like, okay, well,
You wait, 6,000 on top of the parking in lieu fee?
just to change the rules.
If I may, we agree that it's a good idea to change that. It requires a specific plan amendment because unfortunately the language in the specific plan is very explicit. It does require a covenant and the landlord's signature. So we agree that that should be done. It's just not something that we can guarantee we can do in the near future unless there was an application for it. So the suggestion was if he made the application and that's where the $6,000 comes in, then we would treat it as a applicant's request. Otherwise, it goes on to the list of things that we'll get to.
So has everyone else who paid the parking in lieu fee own the property? And this is the first time a tenant's come in saying, hey, I want to expand, I want to pay the fee, and we're having troubles with the landlord and the covenants and
We
all
don't know
that?
I don't know who actually paid for it, but all of the others have a covenant signed by the landlord.
Okay.
I assume, Rock and Brew was probably the
Yeah.
primary example of that, and they bought the property and they did all that stuff, so
Yeah.
it makes
DeLuca
sense.
had to pay. He owns it.
But again, we kind of threw it out there, attach it to our annual business fees or license, and however it works. And like I
Right.
said, we have no problem paying it, whether it's an annual or monthly or whatever. But we just want it on us and not the landlord.
Gotcha.
So that's what we're trying to figure out.
All right, well, with respect to the alcohol license, which is why we're here, I think the fact you're expanding is great. Congratulations on success. I've been there a handful of times. It's always been packed. And my wife is like, where are these young people coming from?
Who are these
I
children?
go there a lot and I
Right.
don't recognize them either, which is good. They're coming
Yeah,
from someplace else, yeah.
So congratulations. I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Any
I
other questions or comments?
Nope. I will make.
Actually, do you have any plans to expand your, excuse me, your outdoor dining footprint?
Just getting that back into action, but otherwise there is no other place.
I mean, the expanding the sidewalk thing that you
Well,
already have, which is
unfortunately, right
nice.
here, there's the whole planters and stuff.
Oh.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
at best, we can maybe move it, a couple feet.
There's another problem as well that we are looking at fixing in the downtown specific plan. It limits the front, or it limits all of the outdoor dining to, I think, 200 square feet per property. This is what-
Oh, it has nothing to do with
Has nothing to do
linear
with the width.
footage.
We're looking
of
at a
the
way to make it more of a linear kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
So even with the expansion, he's already kind of maxed out, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Huh.
mean, it used to be 60 inches from the curb, and then it was changed to 30 inches, which is kind of useless, except for the fact that we lucked out that we had this outcropping. It's 30 inches, you can't even have any, legal ADA stuff, so.
Right.
With that outcropping, we at least had enough to conform to that and at least have, these are just basic bar stools here, there's no tables, there's no room for it. So, just kind of, because the landlord and, spent a lot of money making it look like a piece of art and like to go with the museum, that this is a good way for us to let people know that we are actually at a restaurant because people can be out here. So,
Gotcha. All right. Well, thank you, Christian.
Yeah, congratulations.
thanks. Can I keep this?
Okay, so I'll accept a motion to receive and file the approval.
I'll move to receive and file approval of environmental assessment number EA-1241.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, 4-0. Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda, written communications. Is there anything?
There is nothing.
New business, none. Continue business, none. Report from Planning and Building Safety Director or designee. That'd be
There is
you.
none.
Nothing. Okay, Planning Commissioner comments?
I have a couple things. One, the issue of that sidewalk parking, Greg, is that something that will be onerous for Smoky Hollow with future development? In other words, trying to keep, can we make that outdoor dining on sidewalks much easier for restaurants to do once Smoky Hollow comes along?
Yeah, that's the idea. I don't remember what the limit was in Smoky Hollow. I do remember that we talked about it. It may be different there. This is specific. Well, this is a problem that we see specifically in downtown because that's where we really could use more outdoor dining to sort of keep. There's where we have it, it helps. It brings life to the sidewalk.
It's
and
great.
such. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, it's wonderful.
So when those rules were written back, 15, 20 years ago, it was a different attitude toward, people drinking on the sidewalk, I guess, or eating on the sidewalk, I meant. And so we're looking at it differently now, and we're going to make those changes. And we see Smoky Hollow being very similar in terms of its amenability to that.
Will you explain that one more time? What you see the change will be for outdoor dining for restaurants that are in our downtown
We
quarter?
don't have the details worked out yet. There's a lot of different situations that crop up. One, we have multi-tenant centers that can have outdoor dining for each space, but each one is limited. And yet, if all of them were converted to restaurants, then that would provide a lot of outdoor dining, but we have to take it in 200 square foot chunks. And then there's the question of whether or not we should allow centers like that to aggregate their outdoor dining so that they can have a bigger space that they can all share. Then there's a situation like this where, they've got a lot of width to their property, but, you can't get a lot of width to the outdoor dining. So there's several issues that we're exploring.
I imagine there's a challenge with sidewalks being blocked too for handicapped and things like that.
Which,
so.
yeah, and some of it is Public Works, as you mentioned, have somewhat tightened up on their rules for a while, and they were saying 30 inches because it makes sense from a sidewalk perspective, but it doesn't make any sense at all from a dining perspective.
Yeah, it's useless.
So we're working with them and see rather than make it a set limit from the building face. We're going to say, well, how about if we keep 5 feet clear on the sidewalk and use what's left, which will work in most cases. A lot of the buildings also have private property space next to the parking lot, and it wouldn't matter to us if it was bigger because there's no sidewalk to block. So there's a lot of things that we're considering and looking at, but we have a very small staff, so we'll get to it.
Okay, can I ask, who do I talk to? I know I got the notice about the trash and the new street sweeping. And who do I talk to about that? Because I thought the idea was we're going to line up street sweeping with the trash day so that the day you put your big cans out, there are no cars. But mine's on 2 separate days.
Because you can't do street sweeping if those trash cans are sitting in the street.
That makes
Yeah,
sense.
I think that's right.
Okay.
But Public Works is in charge of it. I can tell you the person you need to talk to.
Okay. All right, any other comments tonight?
I have one more quick one, and that is I just came back from the Urban Land Institute conference in Nashville and attended several workshops on affordable housing. And I'll tell you, the thing that I came away with is it doesn't work with for sale. I mean, it's a rental solution. And so as we look at D.R. Horton, and that thing was well intended, but it's just so hard to do with for sale.
Is it because of the maintenance and the
It's
upkeep?
Here it's because the property values are so expensive. And
Oh,
so,
yeah.
it's if that is going to be subsidized housing, if someone, a for-fee developer is not going to come in and do some below market rate stuff when market rate is so much more affordable or so much more attractive.
Right.
So they've got to be very subsidized to do below market rate, and it's just a difficult business model. So Nashville has it very well worked out because the city owns tons of properties that they've converted into affordable multifamily, and the city manages it. I realize that's a business that our city doesn't want to get into, but it's probably a model that the city of Los Angeles should look at for their own issue. But when we think about what the state is requiring our city to do, I just don't know how it can work with for sale property.
Right, and I can't think of a area where we're going to be able to build a giant apartment complex
Right.
that's going to have 35 units, so we can get 6 low-income units in there.
Right.
We just don't have the real estate for that.
Right.
And I doubt our zoning would allow someone to build something like that, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a challenge.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm very curious to see what City Council asked planning to go do for D.R. Horton. What's the next step on that? And maybe you guys don't know either.
We'll report back after it's settled.
All right.
Okay, great. All right, well, thanks you, everyone. Our next meeting will be May 6th at 5:30 here at Council Chambers, and we are adjourned.